most important session of the day because that deals with finance. Without finance, nothing is possible. You are aware. Remuneration and all is not possible without money. Okay, now we are going to deal with the financing local self-governments, which session is going to be chaired by Professor M.A. Uman. No introduction needed, neither for the chair nor for any of the speakers here. And we have the norm which has been very religiously followed the whole day. None will be speaking more than 10 minutes. So we have got, including the chair, we have got so 10 minutes each, so that 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock we can wind up the session. And thank you very much for agreeing to join us at the fag end of the day. And also, we welcome you on behalf of Hila and Gift. Okay, Professor Umar Saab, Sarani, you are going to take over. And
Okay.
you are the
Thank you
chairperson.
very much. Good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Evening, sir.
I think we had a hectic day today. From the morning till this last session. One thing that has come out most prominently is that local governments are no longer poor relatives, but eminently part of federal polity and have an important role to play in the development, particularly in the context of the corona virus situation. No doubt about the fact that more than any other tier of government, it is the local governments that have the information, capability to monitor, capability to decentralized responses and enforcement. Without going into further aspects of it, let me start with in a wider canvas. We find that there are at least 4 important challenges as a result of the COVID-19 episode. The economic challenge, the health challenges, welfare livelihood challenges, and most of all, part of today's discussion, financing challenges. All the tiers are equally part of these challenges, and the role, responsibility of each tier consists with the domain of their responsibilities. Suggestions, very few, tell you that all what I say are part of certain assumptions or presuppositions that we have to bear in mind. The 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment, unlike the federal fiscal federalism notion, is a developmental concept of the citizen is acknowledged rather than citizen taken as a consumer or customer. Secondly, health is a social good United States of America, more than any other state in the world, is demonstrated how the health sector, the market has failed in that country and in saving the life of the people, protecting people. And this is a major factor, which I mean that health is primarily a social good which should be controlled socially and delivered mostly with public intervention. Then we have to acknowledge the fact that by and large the decentralization, even after 26 years of its life, has been halting and leaves many things to be desired, particularly in the context of fiscal decentralization, is important in the present context. The whole question of financing, if you analyze it in a wider perspective, we have to see it in short-term solution as long-term, as part of long-term plan. Now, my solution, the suggestions, very brief indeed, that I am going to make are given under three captions. One, at the local government level. Two, for the attention of the 15th Finance Commission, which is deliberating these issues at the moment, I suppose. Thirdly, the MB Lads program vis-a-vis COVID-19.
Oman sir is not audible. Please check his mic.
Based on clear, solid studies that the urban local governments could produce or contribute about 44% of the total revenue of municipalities, as against only 5% by the rural local government. This is a deplorable situation. Even the contribution of 44% by the ULBs is not something to write home about. We know that of the, and this is on the basis of the Economic Survey 1718, out of the total urban income, only 3% is taxed even by the urban local government, as against 0.1% by the rural local government. Compare the situation. There is tremendous scope in this country, which is claiming to be the fifth economic power of the world, highly urbanized or fast urbanizing. We have tremendous potential both at the rural as well as at the urban local government level. I suggest that property tax is undertaxed in India, both at the urban level as well as at the rural level. Property tax contributes only 0.14% of the total GDP of the country. And in 2002, 3, till 2017-18, and certainly afterwards, the what was 0.18% of GDP in 2002, it has declined to 0.14% today. This is not something that shows lower productivity and under taxation of the property in the country. We know, and that too on the strength of economic survey, that states which have devolved considerably and made significant progress, like Kerala and Karnataka, have only tapped 33% of their potential in regard to property tax. Several houses, luxury houses in Kerala, are remaining untaxed. In a, I, and, I, the way I started, let me briefly say that the second point is that land monetization, betterment levy, another possibility I have to elaborate at top. Then a borrowing proposition is suggested, that is corona containment bond can be issued by all municipalities who require that at a coupon rate much below the market rate but above that of the reverse repo rate for 10 years, and that can be an opportunity which suburban panchayats also can try to take up. I have several suggestions that have to be made before the 15th Finance Commission. For want of time, I stop that and request Pinaki Chakravarti respond.
Finance and Taxation for this opportunity. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Yes. As mentioned by Professor Roman, capability of decentralized response is enormous, and local governments certainly can play a very effective role in containing COVID. The response in the context of COVID, as we have been discussing, have to be protection of life, providing livelihood and containment of the spread of virus. In each of these, local governments have a major role to play, and financing is critical for that. So local government finances, if we look at, are characterized by very low level of fiscal autonomy, characterized by very low level of revenue and low level of expenditure. in the overall expenditure of center states and the local governments. Local governments with their agency function spend around 6% of the total combined government expenditure. Barring Kerala and a few other states, untied fund at the local level is almost non-existent. As we all know, local governments are mainly performing agency functions, implementing various central and state schemes in most states. We have seen the kind of positive role fiscal autonomy and empowered local government can play as a responder to pandemic in the context of Kerala, and also providing social protections to the migrant laborers. It is true that overnight the fiscal autonomy of local government cannot be increased. But with the 73rd and 74th Amendment, an enabling framework has been created and it exists, and it should be strengthened by the states. But in the context of pandemic, what can a local government do and how we can empower their finances, that will be the focus of my presentation, a very brief presentation. Before I get into the specifics, I just wanted to mention that a recent study by NIPAP, I was involved in that study. We have reviewed this SFC report of 25 states, and it revealed that the average time taken by SFCs to submit its report is around 32 months, resulting in an average delay of about 16 months in submission of the report. Moreover, states also appear not to have acted promptly on the recommendation of SFCs by not placing in 8 years before the state legislature in a timely manner. And that delay, if we take into consideration, I think State Finance Commission as an institutions in most states have really not been able to play its function post 73rd and 74th amendments. So in the context of pandemic, then from the financing point of view, what should be done is a question. I don't think there is any specific answer to that, but a couple of thoughts I will highlight before this August audience. Now, as we know, in most states, SFCs, the panchayats and the urban local bodies are doing agencies function. Overnight, this cannot be changed, and strengthening some of the agency functions would be done. The most important one in this context I would highlight is MGNREGA. As it was mentioned by Aruna Roy in the last session, 100 days should be strengthened and sustained. A quick analysis I have done shows that MGNREGA percentage generated is only 48% vis-a-vis its potential during the last year. And also, if we look at the absolute allocation in nominal term, it hasn't shown much of an increase in the last 5-6 years. It needs to be increased with more allocation and by creating demand with all the norms of social distance in place. And local bodies can play a very effective role in providing livelihood through NREGA post-pandemic. As we know, the incidence of COVID-19 is mostly concentrated in urban areas at the moment. But with reverse migration to villages due to the lockdown, the role of local self-government will increase when it comes to quarantine, providing social protection and livelihood security. Adequate fiscal space to the local bodies should be provided for. This is about claiming that space for local government in the context of COVID for life and livelihood. If not done, there is a possibility that we will not be able to contain the virus contain the virus as effectively as we have done so far. Grants from the Union Finance Commission, if we look at, there has been a lot of discussion on that. Now, I'll just highlight what 15th Finance Commission has done. The 15th Finance Commission has awarded around 90,000 crore as grants to the local governments and an additional 4,400 crores to metropolitan areas for improving air quality, particularly in winter. The overall grant to the local bodies, if we look at, has increased by 8% when compared with 2019-20. So in other words, if we talk about inflation, the increase of 5%, so there is an real increase of around 3% as per the recommendation of the 15th Finance Commission. The Commission has allocated 50% of the funds for local governments other than million plus urban agglomerations as tied funds for sanitation and maintenance of open defecation status and supply of drinking water, rainwater harvesting and water recycling. So in a way, these are all tied grants. And the practice of tied funds creates serious problem of integrating the Finance Commission grants to the local planning process in states like Kerala, where every local government continue to prepare comprehensive annual plans. So there is a serious question here in the context of COVID response. Can these grants be used or can be realigned so that the local government can become the first responder on some of the issues that we have discussed? But looks like most of these funds are tied. So can we really really at the state level request the Finance Commission to actually provide a COVID response grants in the change context of COVID? Since panchayats are in the directive principles of state policy, states in general should consider local government as an institution that should be strengthened, empowered to fight COVID. Introduction of the urban employment guarantee program in the context of pandemic can actually help relieve some of the burdens and distress we have seen to the when it comes to migration and people leaving cities. I think the last point that I would highlight, I think local governments, given their limited fiscal autonomy and also limited roles that they generally have played in various states, except couple of states including Kerala, I think local governments are also doing innovative work sectorally in many states. And there could be some exchange of ideas among the states to learn from each other in this change context so that they become the first responder of this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for keeping the time. And in fact, only 63 crores of rupees have been additionally given by the 15th Finance Commission's interim report for local, rural local governments. And we may endorse the point that the basic grants can be raised to 100% without any tied grants in the context of COVID. Let me call upon Raghunandan.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. It's good to be at this seminar and meet all my old fellow travelers on this decentralization journey. All the usual suspects of the decentralization mafia are there. I must say that they are a very obstinate and tenacious lot. Most of us have been on this task of strengthening local governments for the past 2 decades, and if not more. And actually, the situation has slipped rather than improved in these last 2 decades, particularly on the fiscal side. Let me also say that Kerala has made us all very proud as Indians. As a Malayali, I am particularly proud of how Kerala has handled this crisis. And as the Guardian said, your health minister is a rock star. And if I may say so, the entire cabinet is actually a rock band. But let us not rest on our laurels. This is only the beginning. And we have serious financial problems going forward. Now, one of the things that I kept hearing today was, it's a very condescending thing about building capacity, 20 years back, we heard about building capacity. Now people are still talking about building capacity. Let me just put this capacity in the context of COVID a little bit in perspective before we go to the financial points. As of today, there are 4.6 million cases cumulatively. The US has 1.5 million cases, increasing by 25,000 every day. Spain has 2.74 lakh, increasing by 1,500. Russia is hot on the heels of Spain. It has 2.62 lakh cases, increasing by 10,000 plus. UK has 2.36 lakh, increasing by 4,000. In 1 week more, number 1 will be US, number 2 is Russia, and number 3 is going to be the UK. And it's ironical that these three were the allies of the Second World War, and they can't handle this, right? They were the successful winners of the Second World War, and they're not going to be able to handle COVID. They haven't done it so far. So what capacity building are we talking about? Nobody has a clue how to handle this. In fact, in that context, I think Kerala is a world leader. Like many other small towns and cities and some countries like New Zealand, we are a world leader. So we should be giving capacity building classes to others. And our panchayat should be training others, not the reverse. Monetary stimulus package. If you look at what the government of India has announced, it says 20 lakh crore will be given, right? Now the entire budget of the government of India is 27 lakh crore. So obviously this money is not going to come in the form of money, because certainly the government is not going to divert 74% of its budget to fund the COVID response. So what is the government doing? What the government can do, four things. It can give real money, like enhancing NREGA, enhancing pensions, enhancing the finance commission grants, etc. Or it can increase its own expenditure, like what Roosevelt did, and improved government expenditure during the depression, so as to give direct employment to people. Or the government can forego money. It can give tax rebates, or it can give interest concessions, waiver of loans, etc. Now the problem with giving tax rebates and interest loan concessions, etc., is that it reduces your tax base even further, which means it reduces the amount of money that you can use to create new programs. So it's going to be a Hobson's choice. I am sure Professor Thomas Isaac is himself feeling it, and I'm sure, in all fairness, the Union Finance Minister is also feeling it. So, and we must also remember that the economy was tanking even before the COVID virus hit us. So we were already getting into a kind of a recessionary situation, and the COVID virus has just accelerated that downward spiral. So let me make it very bluntly clear. In my opinion, I don't think we are going to get much more money. The real stimulus in terms of financial packages coming down to the panchayats is going to be very small. At best, we can do a few things like probably increase the flagship program NREGA's allocation. But you must remember that even in NREGA, there's been a huge backlog of wage payments still remaining to be paid. And of course, what Dr. Pinaki Chakravarti said about realigning the Finance Commission grants, that's also something that I think is reasonably, it can be done. It's all been tied down, not like the 14th Finance Commission. But I'm sure the Finance Commission, since it's given an interim report, will be able to untie this and probably make it more flexible, more COVID oriented, etc. Now, if you look at the states, let me come to Kerala. We've done a study in Karnataka from Accountability Initiative, and the study in Kerala is just being completed. So let me give you a sneak preview of what Kerala is facing at the moment. Kerala is a fiscally stressed state. Kerala says that it is giving money to the panchayats, and I must say that it is actually keeping up with that allocation. Though there was a time in the 4th Finance Commission's report period when the allocations actually, as a terms of percentage of the allocation of the state, of the SOTR of the state's own tax revenue, had declined. But if you, the state is still managing to give maintenance funds of 5.5% of the SOTR, general purpose grant of 3.52%, and the development grant of about 25%, though the Finance Commission of the State Finance Commission had actually progressively recommended an increase from 22% to 20 to 30% in the 5th year. The state has not been able to manage it, but it has still managed to retain that allocation. However, there are some very disturbing things about Kerala, and I'm not blaming Kerala. Please, I mean, in this kind of time, I would never blame Kerala. I am just saying that these are things that a state that is fiscally strapped has to resort to in order to ensure that the panchayats get the money. One of the first things that Kerala has been doing is that it has been subsuming the Union Finance Commission grants into the state funds, and it had also taken a World Bank loan, and it has used that money to substitute its own allocations to the panchayat. So actually the panchayat's allocation from the state is progressively decreasing as a proportion. So the state is trying to substitute its own devolution with funds coming from the Union government and from the World Bank. And now there's a second implication, a second point that we have noticed, which is somewhat disturbing. If you look at the planning guidelines of the government of Kerala, which has been issuing for every plan period from 1996 onwards, you will see that the guidelines have become over a period of time very elaborate. Though initially it was very simple, and it said that there were only some upward limits and some minimum allocations and a negative list that was prepared, and the panchayats were free to actually spend within those limitations. all the plan guidelines have become progressively tighter and tighter, except the last planning guideline, which has become somewhat loose. But then what happens is, and that is a very interesting thing which Kerala doesn't talk about. Kerala government has been issuing circulars directing the panchayats over and above the plan guidelines to contribute LG spending towards state sponsored schemes or centrally sponsored schemes. So what happens is that LGs have to fall back on central and state sponsored schemes where they can park their money at the end of the financial year if their expenditures are not up to the mark during the year. So what happens is government directives throughout the year necessitating LG contribution for several government schemes is actually further constraining the LG allocations. Is that the constraints on development fund planning have not disappeared. What has happened to the constraints on development planning at the panchayats is that they have moved out from the planning guidelines, which are issued once in 5 years, and they are contained in the annual financial guidelines circulated to LGs. And so therefore, the LG contribution to CSS and SSS is increasing dramatically. And therefore, the panchayats in Kerala are actually quite fiscally constrained. And I don't know what kind of decentralized planning are they doing today. And I'm sure that everybody in Kerala knows about it, but nobody wants to talk about it because Kerala would still like to preserve its reputation as a state that is doing well in decentralization, which it is because other states are doing much worse. Other states have constrained the panchayats, as Dr. Chakravarti says. There is hardly any untied fund given to any other state, to panchayats in any other state. So Kerala, even though because of its fiscal stress has been narrowing the panchayat expenditure space, is still comparatively much better than other states. Now, my prediction is that what is happening in Kerala today is going to happen at the union government level. As the union government begins to suffer from fiscal stress, panchayats are going to be left to their own devices in order to improve their finances. I was a consultant with the 14th Finance Commission through Accountability Initiative, and we did some work. We realized that 60% on an average across all states of the Gram Panchayat expenditures were being funded directly by the central government. So what has happened is that the state government began to withdraw its money, and the union government was substituting its money, bypassing this, well, not bypassing physically in a sense, but edging out the state finance package with its own money at the panchayat level. So paradoxically, we have a situation by which the third tier and the bottommost level of the third tier, the Gram Panchayat, is actually by and large funded by the union government. Now, if the union government is not going to be able to raise taxes because the economy is tanking, we must think about other moves. Now, one thing is Professor Oomen spoke about two or three very important things. I too very strongly believe that property tax is a big potential tax which the panchayats have not been raising. It's politically very easy for a panchayat to not raise property tax, to not take the unpopular political decision of raising property taxes if it is able to substitute that with money that comes from above. I mean, no government, no politician wins elections by saying that they will increase the taxes. Then there is therefore no hard budget constraint for a panchayat to function as an agency. So we do need to increase the property tax. I mean, a small study that we did in Bangalore, I would estimate that in Bangalore city, without raising property tax rates, by just mopping up property tax, by enhancing the tax base and properly documenting all the houses, we should be able to increase the tax in Bangalore by 3 times. And that's a conservative estimate. So property tax is a very good tax. I don't know whether we can impose something like a piggyback tax. Can Government of India include on the income tax an option for a state government to raise a 2% or a 1% piggyback tax, so that whatever income tax that is raised in a particular state at the option of the state can be increased by 2%, and that money comes into a fund which goes to the local governments. And maybe that fund can come into the local government with certain incentives based on how much of property tax they raise. So a piggyback tax based on how well you collect your property tax with a separate funding to the local government might be able to improve. But I also suggest that there are some very important things that should force us now to go in for greater efficiencies. If we cannot get government money, and if government money is tanking because the economy is tanking and therefore taxes are tanking, then the existing money should be able to work harder. The government rupee must travel further. Now, there are three ways in which we could be able to do it. First is we must clamp down on corruption. Experience shows that wherever the economy has collapsed, eventually people's intolerance of corruption has increased. You see, a growing economy is very tolerant of corruption. In the United States, between 1865 and 1930,
Your
it
time
was one of
is
the most corrupt countries in the world. Yeah,
concluded.
I'll just finish very quickly. We must be able to control corruption and ensure that that money goes to the panchayats in a more efficient way. Second thing is our institutions. We have multiple levels, multiple institutions, complicated workflows, complicated fiscal transfer system, parallel bodies. We need to reduce all these workflows, give all the institutions to the panchayat to handle, dismantle parallel structures because they are all rent seekers and impediments in actually delivery at the ground level. And my last point is that we must be able to improve the decentralized procurement system. Kerala has come out with a manual for local procurement, which is not the PWD manual. The PWD manual is antiquated. It is built for leakage and corruption, but other states do not have a decentralized procurement manual. So in these three ways, if you're able to improve efficiencies of the government, then the local government can make the rupee travel further. And to my mind, Kerala can show the way, and it must show the way because there are no capacities anywhere to handle this. And you have actually proven that you can do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me call upon Jose Chathukulam.
It is clear? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Please go ahead.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Yeah. Respected Professor M.A. Uman and respected panelists. The general assumption is that the local community can understand the aspirations, the opportunities, and the constraints in a better fashion than any other agency. See, and therefore, the local government, which is closer to the citizens, it needs to be actively engaged in the identification and resolution of disaster management issues, including the COVID-19. This is what my first the assumption, the whole thing is there. Then the point is that I would like to say that therefore taking this kind of activity, there are two major legal framework for this. One is that there, as we all know, the constitution is very sound. It says the local governments are expected to do the functions of local economic development and the social justice, in addition to the civic amenities, very clear. Then you look into another interesting aspect of the Disaster Management Act of Disaster Management Act of the 2005. I would like to say that there, you see, the disaster management, as per the Disaster Management Act, there are two institutions at the sub-state level. One is that there the district disaster management authority and the local authority. And as far as the district, the disaster management authority, I am very happy in the sense that there are two very powerful sub-state level institutions. One is at the district disaster management authority, and second is the local authority. But I would like to say that there is a reservation in the sense that what about the national and state disaster policies? This is a major issue. So the point is that when we actually drafted the national policy and the state policy, what happened? The act has been diluted, and as a result, what happened? There was no legitimate space for the local government institutions in tackling the disaster management system. So my first submission is that very seriously we have to revise the provisions, the thing is that the policy of the disaster policy, which is operating at the state level and the national level. There's a kind of a conflict between the act and the policy practice there. See, as far as this COVID-19 is concerned, I would like to appreciate the local government, not only in Kerala, almost the entire country. She looked at there without getting any kind of particular order from above, quote and unquote, from the above, or from a kind of a very explicit statutory support for doing that. Or the local government by their own, they all jumped into the issues and they could manage the issue at that level. So the point is that what the local government are doing and all over the country, we all know that they are doing 101 things, identifying the cases, giving support to the quarantine, those who are have some kind of a contact with the patients. It may be in the same sense that the operation of the community kitchens, whatever may be things there. So by seeing all the things, I would like to say that it is actually reinforcing the hypothesis that local government is the most appropriate political entity to tackle the disaster and very particularly the COVID-19. See, in this case, I would like to say that because of the local government, the public leadership has been contextualized and understood as a public good. This is what as far as the major contribution is concerned in the involvement of the panchayat in the COVID-19 management. So the question is that then we can talk about the finance aspect. I would like to say that one aspect, look into the devolution index, which the reports and studies by the Indian Institute of Public Administration and the Tata Institute of Social Science. You see that what happened, there is a mismatch between the financial devolution and the devolution of the other domains. What my point is that all the studies shows that the financial devolution is less than by 10 points in and around. So the point is that the functions devolution is bigger in size. In some cases, what happened, you have a very good legal framework. And in some cases, what happened, your functionary is also not that bad. But the point is that there is a serious mismatch between the functional and other aspects of devolution and the financial aspects of devolution. So my point is that their financial aspect of devolution has attained the lowest score value of all these studies. It gives an impression that as far as the financial devolution is concerned, it is the lowest devolution among other domain or parameters of the devolution process. Then we look into the sources of financing of the local government. Generally, I would like to say that there are 5 sources. One is that their internal source of the local government, and there are 2 other sources from the state fund and the central fund that is there. As far as the point is that the central fund is concerned, you take the central finance commissions. What is our experience as far as the 14th finance commission is concerned? See, I can just give a kind of a quotation from the 14th Finance Commission. 14th Finance Commission has made that there. Hence, we recommend that no further conditions or directions either by union government or by state government for release of funds to the local government. But there were conditions and directions by different ministries. Look, the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Local Government, Ministry of Rural Development, and Ministry of Panchayat Raj. They have given that their things there. So finally, what happened? Because of these directions and kind of orders from different places, we have said that there the 14th Finance Commission, if money is there, untied fund. But actually what happened, the fund become tight fund as far as the local government is concerned. I can give you one example from the state of Karnataka. What happened in Karnataka? 25% of the local, 25% of the finance, the grant has come to the Karnataka. That actually at the state level, there was a cut of 25%. Yeah, 25% for charging the electricity to the Panchayat.
Please,
Yeah. Okay.
your time is up. Please take 1 minute and wind up.
Okay. Then you look into the state finance commissions. State finance commissions. State finance commissions. The point is that you already mentioned that how the state finance commission is working in the state. I can give you 2-3 examples. Take the case of Arunachal. Take the case of Arunachal Pradesh. Arunachal Pradesh has rejected the state finance commission report by saying that they're not workable. Take the case of Maharashtra. Second Finance Commission, due to the severe financial constraints caused by drought. Karnataka, the recent Finance Commission, the 4th Finance Commission has submitted the report. And there were 2 major recommendations by the Finance Commission. One is that as far as the non-loan net own revenue receipt is concerned, and the grant which is coming from the sender, you are not supposed to consider that as a part of this non-loan net own revenue receipt. That is separate. It cannot be considered. That is what the recommendation of the State Finance Commission. In a similar fashion, what happened? Whatever you are getting the support from the, I'll get only 1 minute. Whatever you are getting the support from the, from the compensation of the GST, that actually you have to consider as part of this. These 2 major recommendations are rejected by the government of Karnataka.
Let me call upon Professor D. Narayana to respond.
Respected Chair and co-panelists. Am I audible? I wish to begin by redefining the title of the session. I wish to call it Financing Local Governments for Public Health. Part of the reason is that, I'm going to refer to the Finance Commission, and it's not an interim report. They have submitted the report for 2020 and 21, and they're not going to change it because it's not an interim report. It's the report for this year. So my focus is not on the immediate pandemic, but a larger issue of public health. That's why I title like that. As you know, public health is defined as, I'm quoting from the Webster Dictionary, the art and science dealing with the protection and improvement of community health by organized community effort and including preventive medicine and sanitary and social science. I'm emphasizing organized community effort. Now, if public health is an organized community effort, can we think of it without the pivot of local governments? We obviously cannot. So when we talk of financing local governments in the Indian context, what comes to the top of the mind is Union Finance Commission, which is about to submit its second report. There are 3 reasons for thinking of the Finance Commission. First, central transfers account for 30 to 60% of the total revenue receipts of the Indian states, depending on their stage of growth. Second, the transfers range from tax assignment, sector-specific grants, local government grants, and disaster management grants. And the third reason is it's an opportunity for the Commission to leave its mark on certain trends of financing, learning from the coronavirus pandemic. Now, coronavirus pandemic has taught us a few lessons, which I think should be entering the perspective of the Finance Commission in designing the transfers to the local governments. What are the lessons? First, in managing each disaster, the local governments play an important role, especially in public health disasters. But the finances transferred to them is not related to it. This has to change. Second, public health disasters should be an important criterion of devolution of disaster management funds and not just past expenditure, earthquake, cyclone, floods, and droughts. Third, sectoral grants, for instance, health grant, too should take cognizance of the above two dimensions, namely local governments and public health disasters. I need not labor the fact that the relative success of Kerala and Karnataka in managing the coronavirus transmission is attributable to a considerable extent to the strength of their local governments. It's well known. There's a lot written on that. Evolution of functions, funds, and functionaries to the local levels of government over the last 2 decades have built up their strength. While in Kerala, it has been sustained irrespective of the political color of the ruling coalition, Karnataka has seen ups and downs. But Karnataka has been able to draw on the strength of the local governments when a need arises, like we heard in the other sessions today. This is an important lesson which the Finance Commission can bring to bear in its recommendations so that public health gets institutionalized in the local government mandate. Here, it may be worthwhile drawing from history of municipal legislation from Great Britain and elsewhere over 100 years ago. The purpose of Public Health Act of 1875 in Britain was to codify previous measures aimed at combating filthy urban living conditions which caused various health threats, including the spread of many diseases such as cholera and typhus, in the context of industrial revolution, urban crowding, poor housing, and sanitation. Although we have inherited many of these municipal legislations as a colonial legacy, they have not entered the books of the Finance Commission in any systematic way while funding the local governments. Coronavirus pandemic is an opportunity for the Commission to leave its mark. The Commission, in its first report for 2020-21, has continued the tradition of making substantial grants to local governments. In fact, I'm not going to go into the details of it. One particular thing is that the Commission has recognized the need to provide larger finances to urban local bodies, proposing to raise it from 32.5% of the total grants to 40% in the medium term. This is, in my view, in the right direction, signaling that state governments have to allocate more funds to urban local bodies. The COVID pandemic has exposed the severe deficiencies of our urban local governments. For both rural and urban local governments, part of the funds is earmarked for drinking water and sanitation. One needs to move beyond and bring in a comprehensive public health trust and put no conditions on the LG grant. That should not be this 50% conditional, 50 basic. I think it should all be unconditional. Now, turning to the Funds for Disaster Risk Management Authority, the Finance Commission believes in continuity and the funds are devoted almost entirely to natural disasters. Allocation to states is based on past expenditures and indexed with the scores for earthquakes, cyclones, floods, and droughts. Now, disaster means natural disaster for them, and epidemics do not appear anywhere in the Disaster Management Act 2005 or Finance Commission reports. The reality, however, is very different, as I argue below. I do not understand the reasoning behind having criterion such as earthquakes in the allocation formula. A state that had an earthquake this year may not have one next 10 or 20 years or may not have at all. Maharashtra had an earthquake in 1993, but not since then. Many other similar examples can be given. So also with floods. But droughts and cyclones do have their cycles, and some states get more of them. Now look at epidemics. Take the period from 2000. There isn't probably a single year without a report of an epidemic in some part or the other of India. Take, for example, H1N1 or the swine flu. Every year since 2010 has reported H1N1. Total number of cases till 2019 is around 1.6 lakh and fatality over 11,000, with case fatality rate going up to 30% in some states. Over 70% of the cases were reported from Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Telangana, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, all the states that we are talking about today in the context of, COVID-19. I strongly believe that these need to be considered as public health disasters and be included as a key criterion. If we had learned these lessons earlier, I think COVID-19 could have been handled better by these states. Now, bulk of the funds devolved should be earmarked for the local governments as they play a crucial role in containing the spread of diseases. The village and town health and sanitation committees should never be starved of funds. Mitigation funds, as proposed by the 15th Finance Commission, should also be made available to them. Now let me turn to my third sort of issue, that is turning to the sectoral grants. The Commission, the 15th Finance Commission, in its report, rightly points to the very low level of public expenditure on health and the need for improving public health infrastructure and human resources in health. The Commission then quickly goes on to recommend the establishment of medical colleges in 247 districts, use of public health facilities for private sector institutions for starting specialized diploma courses, use of specialists from the private sector to treat patients in the district hospitals, and so on. The Commission believes that these initiatives will improve services in the wellness centers and fulfill the goals of Ayushman Bharat. The thrust is on public-private partnerships. What else do you expect when the expert committee is filled with the titans of the private sector? I hold a different view on the subject. Now you look at Ayushman Bharat, it had two goals, namely setting up around 1.5 lakh health and wellness centers by 2022 and provide insurance cover to the poor to access hospital care. Now, as far as this hospital care is concerned, its achievements, there are these numbers. I am not going to get into that. These are large numbers, and around in about 1.5 years or less than that, 11,000 crores has already been dispersed to the hospitals. Now look at the record of the health and wellness centers. How many have been set up? 8,000. That is meeting only 5% of the target. Now the emphasis has to change in the direction of public health and disease control. Now the health and wellness centers are aimed at providing comprehensive and quality primary care close to the community. In fact, part of Kerala's success is also because it's much better achievement in health and wellness centers. They are to be equipped, these health and wellness centers are to be equipped to provide treatment for a number of diseases, age-related, occupation. Yeah. They also play a very important role in reaching antenatal care to pregnant women and early care to infants and children and so on and so forth. Now, because, Kerala has been devoting quite a lot of resources for these, that has given us a much better, government healthcare sector, which has risen to the occasion. Now, the Finance Commission could be instrumental in getting other states emulate this model by granting funds for this purpose rather than the public-private partnership. Let me just sum up in one sentence. Overall, public health should be the binding force in making grants under the three heads around the pivot of local government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me call upon Dr. Shahina to make. a
Good evening,
presentation.
sir. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Respected chair and fellow panelists and the dignitaries who are watching this program. I would rather concentrate on the local finances related to Kerala economy and the possible impact it would be having on the resources of the local governments and what are some of the possible way out. So before I get on to this, the possible impact on the revenue mobilization by the local governments, the broad contours of the local finances in the last 10 years, I thought I will discuss. So at the time of the submission of the 4th Finance Commission and the 5th Finance Commission, we know that the non-tax revenues had surpassed the tax revenues. But if you look at the recent trends, there had been a decline, even at the constant prices, though at the current prices, there had been a tremendous increase in the own revenue mobilization by the local governments. At constant prices, the non-tax revenues has actually declined by almost 2%. The total resources has increased by 2%, but tax revenue has improved. Tax revenue has increased by 4%. Therefore, the composition of own revenue has shifted in favor of tax revenues. Now, what is the reason for the decline in the non-tax revenues so much? Because if you look at the extent of utilization of many of the resources, it has been totally underutilized. For example, the user charges, 692 panchayats are not reporting user charges. Similarly, gate fees, 833. And property from, income from the sale of property, etc. 870 panchayats are not reporting any non-tax revenue. So which means that there is a lot of potential, as Dr. Uman was pointing out, in the own revenue mobilization. There is still a lot of potential even without increasing the rate of these taxes and non-tax revenues. Similarly, as you have pointed out, there is a lot of escaped taxes in the case of both property taxes, profession tax, entertainment, and also the advertisement tax. And to quote the second Finance Commission, they were estimating it to be around 40% in the case of many of the taxes. And similarly, many of the taxes, they have calculated it to be 30%, 33%, etc., which is being carried over continuously in the next few years also. And if you take the entertainment tax, there has been a drastic reduction. Only very few panchayats, 36 or so panchayats, are reporting the entertainment tax of the entertainment tax during the year 2018-19, and advertisement tax only by less than 20 panchayats are reporting on the advertisement tax. Now, there is a confusion regarding the entertainment tax, whether it is being subsumed under the GST or not. And based on a government order, I can give you the example of one of the panchayats in Thrissur, that is Thirur Grama Panchayat, which was, for that particular panchayat, the revenue mobilization from the entertainment tax was the highest, more than the property tax. They were mobilizing around 3 crores a year, because thanks to one multiplex complex in Shobha city. And on the basis of a government order, the entertainment tax collection was totally stopped, and this particular panchayat was crash struck. And later on, based on another order, they have started mobilizing entertainment tax. But as per if you look at the data that is being collected by the 5th Finance Commission, there are around 60 panchayats which are having entertainment tax more than 10 lakhs. Now at present, the revenue mobilization through the entertainment tax is zero for most of the panchayats, vast majority of the panchayats. Similarly, if you take the advertisement tax, there is still a confusion over the advertisement tax as to how much should be the collection. I mean, what are the procedures for the collection of it? And therefore, only very few panchayats, for example, 19 or 20 panchayats are reporting advertisement tax. Thus, therefore, there is a lot of scope for mobilizing tax and non-tax revenue, the own revenue of the local governments, even without an increase in the tax rates and even the non-tax rates. Therefore, ultimately, what happened was that the own revenue mobilization by the local governments against many of the macroeconomic variables has declined over the years. And another reason may be that most of the finance commissions have been pointing out that there are no revision of the tax rates in any of the years. It's long back that most of these tax rates have been revised, and there is also no adequate staff for the collection of taxes that tax fieldwork has adversely affected. So this being the background, now before this seminar, I was actually trying to find out what is the total expenditure which the local governments are now incurring on combating COVID attack. But most of them are not able to tell us, what is the exact amount, because most of the expenditure has been met through the voluntary contribution. But at the same time, some of the panchayats, we cannot generalize on the basis of a few panchayats for the entire state, but still around 60 lakhs rupees, one panchayat has earmarked 60 lakh rupees for combating COVID cases, because it is not going to end soon, which means that that particular panchayat is having only 1.7 crores from the plan grants. So out of the plan grants, 60%, that almost 35% of the total plan revenue mobilization, plan transfers have been set aside for the COVID cases. So, which means that if 30 to 35% of the plan grants are used for the COVID related activities, roughly around, the plan is going to come down by around more than 2,000 crores this year. And given the financial crunch, there could be decline in the subsequent years in the plan fund. We don't know. And similarly, the non-plan grants may also get reduced. And we know that, the Fifth Finance Commission recommendations were not accepted, because if we are accepting the Fifth Finance Commission report, the plan devolution to the local governments would have increased at the rate of 18%, whereas the corresponding figure for the state plan would have been 10%. So therefore, we could not accept the government could not accept the recommendations of the Fifth Finance Commission, but we are following the Fourth Finance Commission's recommendations in the allocation. And as Mr. Jagunandan has pointed out, we are still, holding over to 25% of the total plan expenditure of the local government is still being devolved to the local governments, despite the financial crunch the state government is facing. But as far as the non-tax, the non-plan grants are concerned, it is not the 9%, it is still less than the 9% in the last few years of even the budgeted figures. And so there is, given the economic crisis that the economy is undergoing, there is a possibility that the tax and the non-plan grants and the plan grants can come down. It all depends on the policy of the government. And there is another possibility that, there is, as has been pointed out again by the previous speakers, a substantial amount of the total devolution of the plan grants is coming from the Central Finance Commission's grants and other transfers by the center in the form of centrally sponsored schemes. There is a possibility, though in the current financial year, it may not decline, but in the subsequent years, we don't know what the government is planning to do. And if there is a cut in the Central Finance Commission transfers, definitely there is going to be a decline in the plan transfers to the local governments too. So these are some of the possibilities, but at the same time, we expect that the MGNRE GA grants may not be cut because of the because it is so deep rooted in the economy. Now, a few suggestions for overcoming this. As has been pointed out by the chairman, there is a lot of scope for still mobilizing the own tax revenue and non-tax revenues. And as has been pointed out by the present finance commission chairman, it may be around 1,000 crores rupees. In one of his speeches, he was saying. So we can mobilize around 1,000 crores of rupees through the mobilization, better mobilization and optimal mobilization of these tax and non-tax revenues of the local governments. Now, another possibility is that one of the resources, though it has been, the local governments have been given the authority, the least exploited is the borrowings. And if you look at the borrowings is only very small percentage. It constitutes only 1.58 crores in one of the years. And only recently in the last few years, the borrowings have increased because of the LIFE program. So, yeah, sir, I'm concluding.
Note that your time is over.
Yeah. So the possibility is that, the local governments can depend upon the borrowings, and the KLGDF can handhold the local governments in various, in the borrowings and also in PPP, etc. So, and therefore, there is going to be a lot of increase in the expenditure by the local governments in the in welfare expenditure and also direct expenditure, and therefore the prudent expenditure is one factor through which they can control the finances, in the sense that now at present the total expenditure that is going to the productive sector is only 10%. So they are not not exactly following the guidelines which is given to them. So prudent expenditure and prudent mobilization of resources, and whatever is now given to the local governments, if better exploitation or optimum exploitation is done, to a large extent, the finances can be handled in the post-COVID period.
Thank you. Please. Yeah.
Anshuman Carol says that if you look at the plan-wise budget allocation in the last 3 years, the allocation, the GPDP, the Grama Panchayat Development Plan, the allocation from the disaster relief fund is 0. This means that when the GPDP was prepared, panchayats were not aware of the disaster management fund facility. Many Gram Panchayats prepared DRR plans, but even if these are part of GPDP, funds are earmarked from FFC and SFC, State Finance Commission. Directions issued by the Ministry of Finance, Government of India in the year 2014, it was said that 10% of the flexi funds can be used for disaster under centrally sponsored schemes. What happened to these orders? I thought these questions are mostly related to disaster, which we are going to take up tomorrow.
There is another session.
Another session exclusive. I think, Anshuman, thank you for raising these questions. We will take up these issues tomorrow because we are also too late today. And another question is Ramit Basu. It's a cross question to Anshuman. Forget about that. Raju, utilization of raw materials shall be discussed since the availability. Again, this is not, we are a very focused question of financing development. Disaster management, again, question. No, Vinod. I think Vinod Kumar, central government started the discussion of improving the own resource revenue of the local self-government institutions, especially GPs and urban local bodies. Is it a sign of reducing the grant in aid to LSGs? That is the question which is being asked. Jagjeevan, state-specific, community-specific capacity building strategy needed. Yeah, already highlighted here. Kerala can share our learning and experience, but Kerala can't capacitate others. But unfortunately, most of the SIRDs are not capable to capacitate the panchayats. This is a remark about SIRDs. Dr. Jose, unfortunately, our disaster management authority is highly decentralized. This is a comment to Dr. Jose. Revenue department is not capable to do disaster mitigation program, no skill, no capacity, and revenue department is one of the outdated department. I think final comment is by Binu Raj. DM Act should be modified and LSGs should get more roles and responsibilities. I don't think that we have any.
There is only one
One
question
Exactly.
that is relevant to the context of this webinar subject. That is, are the or do the local governments reduce mobilization of their taxes and revenue in order to attract more devolution from the higher tiers of government? This may be a possibility, but that is not a desirable trend, and most finance commissions, both state as well as central, have added tax effort also as one of the criteria of devolution. Even so, the most important aspect, particularly in the context of the coronavirus, is that there is no escape from stepping up, going for more taxation. And as I have said, property tax should be a key factor in that, and the land should be included by simply including land, the yield will be considerably high. And those states like Punjab, Rajasthan, which have dropped property taxes, and also Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, which have virtually no tax at the rural local government level. This is not the way to mobilize resources. And in total, as I have said, out of the rural income of India in 2017-18, only 0.1% is taxed at the rural local government level. This is a pathetic situation that must be addressed, particularly in the context of the coronavirus. I just want to add, so many of my points should not be specified. Now, taking advantage of the presence of Dr. Thomas Isaac, who has been as much an expert and local government and governance. The MP Lads program, which is abolished now for 2 years, not abolished, it should be abolished. Suspended for 2 years, brings about straight 4,000 crores plus non-lapsable accumulated funds over these years appropriated by the union government. At least ostensibly, these resources were meant for local area development, and these should be given to the local government, and the state government should make a plea for that to be done immediately. Thank you. I would like our esteemed finance minister also to take advantage of his presence. Ask him to comment.
Yes, I missed most part of the discussions here. Hello, Pinaki, Shahina, Raghu, Jostathakulam. Now we have put this session for one particular reason. Um, I was thinking this opportune moment to approach the Finance Commission, 15th Finance Commission, not on the basis of some particular state, but by a platform of all people who are committed to decentralization. That Finance Commission anyway is not finalizing the report now, cannot. And therefore, we could present a memorandum pointing out the role that local governments can and do play in pandemics like this, a need for a greater allocation to the local governments from the Finance Commission. As of now, for most states in India, the Finance Commission allocation would be, I think, the only revenue that local governments are going to really get. States are in such a dire situation. The axe is going to fall on everything. In Kerala, we have taken a very strong position that departmental plans may be cut, but local government's plan won't be cut. This is partly out of realization the vital, most important role local governments are playing in coordinating all the anti-COVID activities at the local level. In fact, I think they would perhaps even get a greater location than what is given in the budget. Well, that's the intention. But anyway, so perhaps we could all think together how to frame such a memorandum. I think it would have some impact and effect because the deliberations here in the earlier sessions do really point out kind of growing realization of that even in states, for example, where local government experience has not been so very good, they are playing a very important role at the local level in the pandemic times. So this would be an opportune moment to put our heads together, not only to the Finance Commission, but also make the decentralization once more a part of mainstream discussion. I don't want to speak more, but let's see. I think we will continue the conversation otherwise. I think some people, Pinaki can definitely join to draft such a memorandum which can be circulated, and then we take it to the Finance Commission.
Let me take this opportunity to thank all the panelists, all of are my good friends for participating. Carry forward the challenges moment, the challenge of drafting a fresh memorandum to the 15th Finance Commission that is pertinent, relevant, and timely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
How much insight has been brought to the table on the issue. And Dr. Joy and me would like to thank all the panelists and of course, indeed, our dear Professor Uman. And you know that Professor Uman is our honorary professor in GIFT. Uman is our honorary professor in GIFT. And we thank all of you. Dr. Joy joins me in thanking all of you because it was very enlightening and insightful session. And finally, if you are really serious about taking the agenda forward, kindly put down your thoughts as, I think
say I have an announcement. I forgot to add it when I spoke last. There were demand from many people that they would like to hear our health minister, Srimati Shailaja. Unfortunately, she has gone to Kanu, and I contacted her. She has agreed to come tomorrow, 10 o'clock. She will be speaking a special address. You're not changing any other agenda, but she would be coming whenever she is available. I think most probably 10 o'clock, and she would be speaking in the webinar.
I was referring to the notes. We will send you this transcript, and you can transform, add your points, and send a decent note to all of us. Thank you very much. Yeah, and again, tomorrow we will be starting at 9:30 sharp, and we'll have also the special address by Honorable Health Minister. Thank you very much. Good night.
അതാണോ ഈ ആര് തരത്തിലുള്ള വലിയത്